Good evening and welcome to the News at 8, live on Eswatini TV. I am Nondobeko Nzapkeloago and I am together with Nomakabiso Nkambule. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines. His Majesty's government says it is impressive that Eswatini is one of the two countries in the world that have reached the United Nations target of 95-95-95. The Minister for Finance says government will continue prioritizing the health sector in the country's national budget allocations. The British High Commissioner to Eswatini has announced a new funding facility for Eswatini worth over 32 million emalangeni. And now for the news in detail. Government wishes to update the nation that His Excellency, the Prime Minister Ambrose Mandvulo Dlamini, is responding well to treatment after contracting COVID-19 and remains stable. In a press statement issued by the Deputy Prime Minister, Themba Masuku, to guide and fast-track his recovery, a decision has since been taken that he be transferred to a South African hospital earlier this afternoon. The Deputy Prime Minister says the Minister of Health will continue to provide appropriate updates and he wished the Prime Minister a full and speedy recovery. The Prime Minister tested positive for COVID-19 on the 15th of November 2020 and he was asymptomatic. On advice of doctors, he was admitted to the hospital for monitoring on the 23rd of November 2020 after starting to show mild symptoms. The news continue. The Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini says it's impressive that Eswatini is one of the two countries in the world that have reached the United Nations target of 95-95-95. The Prime Minister says this impressive measure is a result of efforts by government and its partners. The Prime Minister was represented by his Deputy Prime Minister, Themba Masuku, at the commemoration of World AIDS Day, which was held at the George Hotel today.
World AIDS Day is commemorated annually on the 1st of December. This year, the day is commemorated under the theme Global Solidarity, Shared Responsibility. The Prime Minister, who was represented by his deputy, Themba Masuku, says the 95-95 treatment means that of the 200,000 people living with HIV in the country, over 95% know their status. Over 95 of those who know their status are on life-saving treatment and 95 of those on treatment are virally suppressed. He says these impressive achievements are a result of the efforts by government and its partners.
Since then, Eswatini has put forward a formidable response to the HIV and AIDS epidemic. Some of our responses included the formulation of the Swaziland National AIDS Program, SNAP, the establishment of the Crisis Management Technical Committee.
The chairperson of the Board of Directors of Nurture Council, Dr. Jonathan Dlamini, says the challenges faced by people living with HIV and AIDS is internal stigma.
Efforts will be made to promote zero stigma and discrimination to create enabling environment.
UN Resident Coordinator Natalie Ndongose says almost 700,000 people in the world died of AIDS last year.
Close to 700,000 people died from AIDS-related illnesses in the past year.
US Ambassador Lisa Peterson says 16 years ago, when PEPFAR began work in Eswatini, fewer than 500 people were on ARVs, but now more than 206,457 adults and children are receiving treatment.
We now have the opportunity to control and ultimately end the HIV/AIDS epidemic in this country.
Peterson revealed that this is the last AIDS Day she's commemorating with the country because she is going back to the US. Nurture Director Kanya Mabuza applauded her efforts in the fight against HIV and AIDS. Reporting, I'm Lungelele Makakula with Muslim Konda in Manzini.
The government of Eswatini will continue to prioritize the health sector in the country's national budget allocations. This was said by the Minister of Finance, Neil Regenberg, who emphasized on the importance of channeling resources towards programs focused in the fight against HIV and AIDS in the kingdom.
Speaking in an event where civil servants working in the Ministry of Finance commemorated World AIDS Day at the National Fire and Emergency Services headquarters in Babane, the Minister of Finance, Neil Regenberg, said the country's health sector remains a key focus for national development. Hence, government will continue to ensure healthy budget support systems for this sector.
Really, as Eswatini, I think it's really, there's an element of celebration. I mean, we've attained 95, 10 years ahead of what the world's goal was for us to achieve. The only country in the world to have attained this. So there's an element of celebration to AIDS Day, to say, wow, we've really attained a goal which the world is aiming for, and Eswatini, with our numbers and with our HIV, have attained that already. From a budget point of view, we really believe that Eswatini has prioritized HIV, and we have prioritized AIDS as well as the health sector. So we'll continue to do so, especially now with COVID. It's now making the health even more important. As you would have seen, we moved almost R1 billion emalangeni. We've shifted in this year's budget from other spending to health spending in the year that we are in. This has to continue, obviously, until we're on top of the COVID crisis. We're going to have an extra spend in health. But at the same time, government is definitely giving huge priority towards it. Right now, we're in a process of settling arrears. We've started with the health. We've started settling health arrears first. As we stand here, we have almost settled 100% of the arrears in the Ministry of Health, just to show the drive and the direction we are trying to give to make sure, as a country, the health sector comes first.
In past years, the government of Eswatini has shown immense support to the country's health sector, as health and education account for large proportions of the kingdom's national budget allocations each year. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with LinkedIn Kule in Babane.
The House of Assembly has passed a motion that the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade provide funds for women associations at Tinkundla centers in order to empower them to produce masks for school children and vulnerable members of the community. The motion was passed during a sitting of the House on Monday.
The motion was moved by Mapalalean Member of Parliament Mabulala Maseko. Initially, the motion was directed to the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister that it should engage the National Disaster Management Agency to empower the women. However, members of Parliament argued that the PM's office is not mandated to empower Maswati with funds.
But unfortunately, in terms of Timbuluma personally, I feel that the PM's office has never been part of the empowerment in my communities. I've got a mandate here. Mr. Speaker, my NTM Neganjalo, I'm Kumbuli, I'm a mandate empowerment, no my responsibility, Mr. Speaker.
amane ayibambene that spirit talabahlonishwa ngiyathi ukuthi mhlambe ema-policies tawuthwala kunja kodwa akasayibambi umhlonishwa DPM ngale spirit lesicela ngomhlonishwa aseyibuye ekhaya kube khona labomake laba kwenda
Kushiya ama-structures bosele kubo-commerce besibanika imali sabanika nemithetho sabanika nemandi ositi abantu ngiyasosuka DPM lokunganyiswa ngayi-COVID. Sithasikundeni sakhuluma nge-COVID niyaluzalamothi ngiyahlala nodaba kuwa njani lapha lo moya lomhle kangaka ufanele ukuthi sibanike bo tinkundla na-commerce labangibona balule khona
bentathu akadeclarishe interest kuqala because umhlonishwa senzini uyathengisa ama-face mask honorables siyakwati lokho and kukwabaqhuqhumukisa labaningi etinkundleni ngokuthi njani
ngabe ushito ngokuthi umhlonishwa uprotector imakethe yakhe hayi ukuthi utola nabomake abafuni bomake labathamba letinkundleni ukuthi bangasekeleki bangasidakaki
manje noma ngathi ngale motion iphindze ibeke kahle izi kepha nje sisethi kwayo
At the end, the House agreed that the Minister of Commerce and Trade is the one that should empower the Women with Fund. As businesses are under its portfolio, the Minister of Commerce and Trade, Manqoba Khumalo, says the ministry was already working on the project. Minister says his ministry will work with the Minister of Tingundla. Thereafter, MPs ordered the Minister of Commerce and Trade to table a report within 4 weeks in Parliament. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Parliament.
Labour Commissioner Mthunzi Shabangu says employees are not forced to disclose their HIV statuses to their employers unless the worker will benefit from disclosing their status. Mthunzi said this when the Ministry of Labour and Social Security was commemorating World AIDS Day today.
Labour Commissioner Mthunzi Shabangu says labour laws protect employees from disclosing their HIV/AIDS status to their employers or supervisors, as sicknesses are personal.
Let us protect, the right of anyone to be, to remain discreet in terms of his or her medical condition. Not unless the disclosure of that medical condition is necessary because of any protection that may have to be granted by the employer towards that particular employee in terms of the working conditions, in terms of the departments, depending on the nature of the work that is being done in that particular enterprise, So it may then be necessary at a certain given point in time for the employer to know or for the supervisor to know the medical condition.
The Ministry of Labour and Social Security Principal Secretary Thulani Mkhalipi says health workers have a positive benefit to the economy. The Public Sector HIV/AIDS Coordinating Committee, PSHEC Director, was represented by Tulisios during the Ministry of Labour and World AIDS Day commemoration. Shoisa says the country is near beating HIV/AIDS.
We come from an era where those on earth would take a mouthful of tablets per day. We come from an era where people would be stigmatized and discriminated against due to HIV/AIDS. When we look back, Program Director, as we sigh, but not a sigh of relief, but to say what a journey it has been, we definitely do not forget where we come from.
Emaswati who are taking HIV treatment, ARVs, drugs, are estimated to be over 200,000. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla, Mbabane.
The British High Commissioner to Eswatini, John Linfield, has announced a new funding facility for Eswatini worth over 32 million emalangeni, which will be used to provide as vital support to communities impacted by COVID-19.
In a period when many people in Eswatini are faced with the adverse effects of COVID-19, the British High Commission has announced much-needed funding assistance for the people of Eswatini. British High Commissioner to Eswatini, John Linfield, says the funding worth over 32 million emalangeni is targeted at assisting the most vulnerable households and individuals in Eswatini.
Eswatini will actually benefit to the tune of £1.6 million, and it's fantastic news for Eswatini, and it will provide vital income relief for hundreds of Eswatini families most affected by COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, rural communities will also benefit from the water, hygiene and sanitation services which will help towards food security in the long run. Which I think is desperately needed here. So we're really pleased.
The British High Commission will be working with two implementing partners in this program, the first being UNICEF, which has been given 25.4 million emalangeni for implementation of the organization's water, sanitation and hygiene program. UNICEF will also provide nutrition support through this funding assistance. Red Cross will be given 6.7 million emalangeni for the provision of food security. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with Fabrice Musonera at Eswatini.
National Emergency Response Council on HIV and AIDS Director Khanya Mabuza says in Eswatini there is still a strong correlation between the lack of financial independence among young girls in Eswatini and high infection rates in this age group. Mabuza shared such thoughts during the World AIDS Day commemoration held at the George Hotel in Manzini.
A study conducted by the National Emergency Response Council on HIV and AIDS nurture 2 years ago proves beyond reasonable doubt that there is a strong correlation between poverty and the spread of HIV infections among young girls in the country.
There is a strong relationship between Lama incentives and HIV. If you don't give them a basic incentive, Lomtana very exposed to HIV.
The organization's executive director Khanya Mabuza says fast forward to 2020, many girls who lack financial independence still find themselves in a predicament of being exposed to risky sexual behaviors that greatly expose them to HIV.
It depends. It's a basic need.
Mabuza says that apart from the lack of financial independence, there are many socio-economic drivers of HIV among the country's youth, such as degenerating family structures, as well as lack of love and support at family level. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with Lincoln Kule in Manzini.
Police, prosecutors, and other judicial officers have been trained on the specialized aspects of investigating and handling digital evidence in Eswatini's courts. The training session took place at the Royal Science and Technology Park at Poqweni.
Many Maswati have been victims of cybercrime, particularly on social media. Their bank accounts, their portable gadgets, and their cell phones. Jabuliso Malinzisa from the cybercrime team says they have conducted their trainings to police officers and judicial officers on how to investigate cybercrime cases using technology.
We are looking at empowering all of the officers in terms of equipping them to be able to present clearly to the court this kind of evidence so that we can be able to try cases in a proper way.
Prosecutor Ngamsile Masugu says the country has a responsibility to enact laws that align with the new technologies.
As of now, we are using our traditional style of giving evidence in court because, as we know, that we still have the cyber bill which has not been yet promulgated into law. So we're looking forward to our parliament to pass this cyber bill into a cyber law so that we can be of service to the Swazi nation in terms of those offenses, in terms of the cyber crimes.
Head of the fraud unit at the Royal Eswatini Police Service, Nicholas Jele, says people are now vigilant of such cases and are extra cautious with their gadgets and personal information.
We have seen a positive response from Maswati, where we go around and actually give that awareness. In fact, we are so positive and we are hopeful that by the time we get into 2022, definitely Maswati will be aware of the dangers of cyber crime.
The cybercrime team pleads with members of the public to be extra vigilant and protect themselves from cybercrime, especially because the busiest time of the year is upon us. Reporting, I'm Lungulile Makakula with Fabrice Musonera at Poqweni.
Meanwhile, Eswatini Network of Young Positives Program Coordinator Futhi Shongwe has partly attributed the increase of HIV infections among young people to the lack of skills development facilities at community level. Shongwe was speaking during the World AIDS Day commemoration held in Manzini at the George Hotel.
Since the beginning of the year until now, the people of Eswatini have had to face the adverse effects of the outbreak of coronavirus, a situation that has negatively affected different population groups in different ways. Eswatini Network of Young Positives project coordinator Futhi Shongwe says the kingdom's youth is among the worst hit population groups because due to the closure of schools, many young people were idly at home, whilst yet other young people were retrenched at work, a situation that compromised young people as many ended up engaging in unsafe sex during this period. Futhi says Eswatini needs to put in place programs that will help develop young people's skills.
Bantu labasha especially ngesikhathi se-COVID batikhanze bebekude la bangakwenda emakhaya. Kude mhlawumbe tinsita leti bakhona emangweni letenda ukuthi umuntu lomusha angahlali ahlale njengendilutho kufuneka ukuthi ngabe kunetinhlelo letindekako leta ukhona ukuthi umuntu lomusha akhona ukuthi imbadzakanya kito so lengululeko bese inengi kakhulu and batali nabo bese bafike kulesikhathi ukuthi wonke umuntu bekaseva lokuthwala kamadima.
Young people who attended the World AIDS Day commemoration also admitted that 2020 has been a challenging year for the youth.
Became dependent on boyfriend. Now sakafika boyfriend lokuthengela kudla lokubhadalela irent athi akayifuni condom, you can't risk losing lokudla because vele you need le assistance. So I think that is one fact.
The Eswatini network of young positives has a firm conviction that skills development programs at community level can be of great benefit to the youth because young people who use their skills to earn a living tend not to focus on risky sexual behaviors. For Eswatini TV News, Hlengiwe Ndlovu with links in Kule in Manzini.
Let's now take a look at the COVID-19 update from the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Health has reported 23 new confirmed cases in the last 24 hours. In a statement issued by the Minister for Health, a total of 411 results were received, which brings the total number of confirmed cases to date to 6,442. The statement shows that there are 280 active cases, 6,017 have recovered, 122 have died, and 23 have been registered for care. Manzini region has 2,949 cases, Hoho region has 2,401 cases, Lubombo region has 569 cases, and the Shiselweni region has 523 cases of the coronavirus. Let's take a look at our sports news. Manzini Wanderers head coach Nyanga Hlope says the club's main priority into the new season will be to create and build a new club that will be competing for trophies in the future. Hlope says this based on the players that the club has managed to secure ahead of the new season that kicks off on the 12th of December 2020.
Manzini Wanderers Football Club continue with its training sessions ahead of the new season. When visiting the club during their training session at Old Trade Fair Manzini, faces like Makrish and Supermandla, who were both playing for Mbabane Swallows in the previous season, Jimmy Moses, who played for Mbabane Highlanders, Fabrice Mopina, who played for Manani Pirates, and many more, were training with the club. Club's coach Nyanga Hlope says the new faces are in line with the club's objective, which is to build a new team this coming season.
Team 3 years. But coach angibuke nje ukuthi the performance ishinje.
One of the club's senior player, Mangoba Masego, says everything seemed to be new at the club since the arrival of the new players. According to the coach, the team will be involved in few friendly games before the kick off the new season. For Eswatini TV Sports, Babane.
Eswatini Rifle Association Chairman Sipho Njali says the Lesego shooting tournament to be played this coming Saturday at Nogwane will assist shooting players to weigh their level of fitness before the year ends. Njali was speaking to Eswatini TV Sports in Babane today.
Eswatini Rifle Association will be hosting the Lesego shooting tournament this coming weekend. According to the association's chairman, Sipho Njali, players will get a chance to evaluate their level of fitness. Njali says having not been able to host many tournaments this year due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, the tournament will serve as a Christmas present to the players. The sponsorship from Lesego in this tournament is worth 15,000 emalangeni. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabio Msondera, Mbabane.
Well, that brings us to the end of our news. But before we leave, let's take a quick recap of the headlines. His Majesty's government says it is impressive that Eswatini is one of the 2 countries in the world that have reached the United Nations target of 95-95-95. The Minister for Finance says government will continue prioritizing the health sector in the country's national budget allocations. The British High Commissioner to Eswatini has announced a new funding facility for Eswatini worth over 32 million emalangeni. Eswatini, that is all the news we had for you tonight. Up next is the weather forecast. Good night and God bless.